What's up guys, Asian here again with another build video, and today we're going over the Stamina Sorcerer DPS. So Stamsorks, not much has really changed for Stamsorks between Harrowstorm and Greymoor. It did get a slight indirect buff through the changes to pets. Your Unstable Clannfear now, which I forgot to summon, he now gains Bloodthirty. So in the past, the Clannfear actually did not get Bloodthirty at all, so in Execute, weren't really getting any bonuses to Clannfear. Clannfear wasn't benefiting from Bloodthirty. Now it is benefiting from Bloodthirty, which makes it a little bit stronger now. So Stamsorks, at least my Stamsork build, we're still using the Clannfear just because it's easy passive damage and it provides a reliable self-heal for yourself. Of course, there are Stamsork builds out there that don't use the Clannfear. Those are still also very good builds. I just personally like running the Clannfear here because it's the self-heal plus the passive damage. It's all really nice and tightly bundled. Now, just like the rest of our build videos, we won't be going over any sort of gear. Gear is reserved for the DPS gear video, which should be popping up in the upper right hand corner right about now. So if you're interested in knowing what sort of gear you should be running as a Stamina Sorcerer, go ahead and check out that video. This video will be focusing in on the skills and the rotation itself. Let's go ahead and get started here with our skills. So our main spam build is still going to be Rapid Strikes here. So this is a dual build. If you're running two-handed, obviously this will change. But Rapid Strikes is going to be our main spam build here, and up until around 30 to 25% health, at which point we'll be swapping over to Whirling Blades instead. So Whirling Blades is going to be our execute build here because of that scaling execute, obviously. Then we have Hurricane here. This is pretty decent for Major Resolve, Minor Expedition, as well as the additional, obviously, damage that we get from it. Then we have Unstable Clannfear, which just passive damage. You just need to have it out, and it will just automatically hit things for you. Now, the cool thing about the Unstable Clannfear is that it does have a self-heal associated with it. It's fairly small, all things considered. I believe it's about 30% of your max health, and it does scale with your max health here. So it's actually not terrible. Obviously, in an actual raid environment, you will be getting heals from your healer. But in those instances where your healer might be down, or you're in a situation where you're separated from the healers because of some trial mechanic, for example, having this self-heal can be a pretty good sort of safety net for you. Then we have Bound Armaments here, basically acting like a Nightblade's bow proc, essentially. We have Flawless Dawnbreaker for the passive weapon damage boost that we get. On our back bar here, I was playing around earlier, so let's that with this. We have Barbed Trap for minor force, then we have Poison Injection, Endless Hail, Unstable Clannfear again, and Bound Armaments again. Now, if you do need some additional sustain here, you can swap out Bound Armaments for Dark Deal, if you would like. Dark Deal is a pretty strong sustain tool here. There is a cast time with it, so just make sure you're not blocking during that cast time, otherwise you basically just wasted the proc there. But Dark Deal is really solid if you're finding trouble sustaining your full rotation. Then we have our Greatest Storm Atronach as our primary damage ultimate of choice. Now, if you don't want to use the Clannfear, you certainly can get rid of the Clannfear here. That opens up these two slots here, which basically allows you to put pretty much a lot of different abilities here. So you can put Trap back on your front bar if you'd like with this, and then you have this open spot here, which you can use with, well, none other than Dark Deal here. So this is one option. This is typically what I would like to run if I don't need to run the Clannfear. Generally speaking, though, I do like running the Clannfear, though, so I do try to keep the Clannfear active when and where I can. If you want to move Trap to the front bar here and then move Hurricane to the back bar, that's also something you can do as well. Hurricane will grant you 2% additional weapon damage, while Barbed Trap grants you 3% weapon damage, so the difference is going to be very minor. At this point, you're just sort of nitpicking in terms of optimizing your rotation because of the duration of these abilities here and which ones you want on your front bar versus back bar, etc. So really doesn't really matter too much. Again, 1% weapon damage is very small. You're talking like 40, 50, maybe 60 tops difference in weapon damage. It's not a huge difference. It's not going to push you an extra 1,000, 2,000 DPS or anything like that. It's going to be within margin of error difference. Now, in terms of rotation itself, you're pretty much going to be centered more or less around how Bound Armaments work. So Bound Armaments works very similarly to the bow proc. It pretty much works identically to the bow proc here, where you activate it, it stays active, and then after a certain number of light attacks, in this case 4 light attacks, you can then use the ability and fire out 4 daggers to deal damage. Now, it does have some differences from the bow proc. So, for example, you could cast it early. So, in this instance, I only shot 2 daggers out. That's obviously not the most optimal way to use it, but you can use it nonetheless. That way, nonetheless. Of course, in this instance, each dagger is its own separate hit. So, the bow proc deals all of its damages in a single blow, versus the daggers, which each of them are individual. You also have 4 daggers, so you only have to count up to 4 light attacks versus 5 for the bow proc. Now, with the actual counting of the bow procs, or I should say dagger procs, I should say, you want to avoid doing something like this. So this is something that I see some players do, especially when they're just starting to learn how to play Stamsork. You do this, 2, 3, 4, and then they do a 5th light attack, and then they use the daggers. Now, you don't want to do that for a couple of reasons. First of all, much like the bow proc with Nightblades, if you're doing light attacks and you already have 4 daggers, you're not gaining more daggers. You're not basically storing up procs, so to speak. You're basically wasting that light attack, which could have gone towards the dagger of the next set of daggers that you could have procced there. And the second, you're not getting in more procs out of it. So the idea is you want to get as many procs as you possibly can out of Bound Armaments before you have to renew it. So with that method that I used earlier, where you did 5 light attacks before using your bow proc or dagger proc, you basically aren't getting as many daggers out as you possibly can. So instead of doing something like this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you should be doing something like this instead. So 1, 2, 3, 4, then you hit the dagger proc. So going slower so you guys can see what's happening here. 1 light attack, 2 light attacks, 3 light attacks, 4th light attack into our dagger proc. The earlier one I was doing was 1 light attack, 2 light attacks, 3 light attacks, 4 light attacks, 5 light attacks into our dagger proc. So you want to do the former, not the latter. Other than that, the rotation is actually fairly straightforward. Always open up with your source of minor force, so in this case, Barbed Trap. And just use your spam bow. Now, I mentioned earlier that your choice between Barbed Trap on the front bar versus the back bar is mostly up to personal preference, as well as timing. What I mean by timing is Hurricane does more damage the longer it is active. So for Hurricane, you want it to run the full 15 seconds. Barbed Trap has an 18-second duration. Hurricane has a 15-second duration. Your 2 dots on your back bar essentially have a 10-second duration. So Poison Injection has 10 seconds, and then Endless Hail has 12 seconds. So if you decide to combine all 3 abilities on your back bar together, that is, when you're on your back bar, you cast all 3 of them together, you are going to lose damage on Hurricane because you're not letting it last the full duration here. Barbed Trap doesn't line up as well because it's 18 compared to 10 and 12, but it lines up better, so to speak, compared to running Hurricane. So my personal preference is to run Barbed Trap on the back bar, Hurricane on the front bar here, because it's easier for me to keep track of Hurricane that way when it's on the front bar. Kind of up to you how you want to deal with that. You could just break up your front bar rotation and just go to your back bar, recast Hurricane once it runs out completely, and do kind of a dynamic rotation that way. So you do have a couple of options here. So for this particular parse here, I will be doing... stop the combat here. I will be doing Trap on the front bar here. But just keep in mind here that you might have an easier time maintaining 100% uptime on Hurricane if you have it on the front bar. Again, the difference is 1% weapon damage, past weapon damage bonus, but not a huge difference, so just kind of take that as you will. Now for our trial dummy parse, just keep in mind this is not indicative of what you would see in an actual raid environment. Dummy parse is missing a few buffs and debuffs. We're missing Zens, we're missing Minor Courage, for example. Plus, we're also missing a couple of sustain buffs. So we're missing things like Sentinel Gums, Master Restoration Staff, while we are using Lava Foot that kind of imitates in-rage sustain. Not going to be 100% accurate. We will be getting more sustain in actual optimized raid group. Plus, obviously, the trial dummy doesn't have mechanics. In the actual trial, we're playing mechanics, so our DPS might drop a little bit because we're playing these mechanics. We can't be within melee range, for example, etc., etc. So use this more as a demonstration of the rotation, as well as a point of comparison across different classes, just because the trial dummy does help to standardize buffs and debuffs across various classes. Let's go ahead and get started with our parse. Now, I do highly recommend, if you have bound armaments on both bars, cast it on your front bar because you have higher weapon damage on your front bar compared to on your back bar. So that means you would be doing more damage with your daggers if you cast it on your front bar compared to your back bar. Now, if you let Endless Hail run completely out, we'll be able to get that full duration on Hurricane. But that does mean you are obviously making some sort of sacrifice here, giving up some uptime on poison injection in order to do so. Oh, you know what I forgot to do? I forgot to change my CPs. That's why my damage is low. I was doing Magicka earlier, so let me just reset my CPs. Sorry about that. I knew something was up. I knew I was forgetting to do something here. Somewhere right there. That's what arm should be. Lower, higher. Go. Sorry about that. I forgot I was running Maarselok CPs. So we'll get our ultimate back up and we'll go ahead and restart the parse. Apologies about that. This video is going to run a little bit longer as a result. Not too much longer here. The good thing is, obviously, Sorcs do have lower ultimate cost, so it's only 170 for our Atro. Now, one thing to keep in mind with the Clannfear, if you're running against multiple enemies, is you do need a heavy attack in order to get your Clannfear to attack the right thing, because you're not running Daedric Prey. Magicka Sorcs are obviously running Daedric Prey, so you're able to just cast Daedric Prey and it'll automatically attack whatever it is that you cast Daedric Prey on. Let's try this again. Again, by letting Endless Hail run completely out, we're sacrificing for the injection uptime for Hurricane DPS. Again, we don't want to necessarily cast our daggers on our back bar because we have higher weapon damage on our front bar. That does affect how much damage our daggers do. So remember, your daggers do carry over if your ability runs out. Much like Bow proc for Nightblaze if you let that buff run out. re-up on Armaments before we go to our back bar here. Now at about 30 to 25% health, you can start running Whirling Blades rather than Rapid Strikes. I personally just start at 25. It's a nice easy number to remember when Bloodthirty happens, etc, etc. But you can actually start it a little bit earlier. So here is where you can start going into Whirling Blades, but again, I like to start at 25. It's easier for me to remember. Other than that, your rotation remains pretty much exactly the same. It's up to you whether you want to keep using Bound Armaments or not. Double cast there. The lag spike probably. I don't think that'll affect our DPS too much though. We'll use our ultimate, why not? You won't re-up Bound Armaments though. So there we go, that is a Stam Sorc rotation. This parse actually is a little bit lower than what I normally get. Normally I get somewhere around 85 to 86, but this time I only got 84.2. But yeah, fairly straightforward, not that bad in terms of actual rotation sort of complication, unless you want to make it complicated. Again, you are going to be losing some poison injection uptime by doing the rotation that I did, in favor of getting some additional DPS from Hurricane instead. So it's kind of up to you how you want to do it. Hurricane is not a huge contributor, but it's still sizable enough that you still want to try to optimize it if you can. You don't necessarily need to. You can cast it early and get better uptime on poison injection. So take a look at poison injection, for example, 67% uptime. So you can obviously get it a lot better if you prioritize this over your Hurricane DPS. The actual DPS from poison injection isn't going to be super great overall ever since they nerfed it. So you might be better off to prioritize Hurricane over poison injection. It's kind of up to you how you want to play around with that. But that pretty much covers it for this build video. If you guys have any questions at all, feel free to leave them down in the comment section below. I will try to answer them all to the best of my ability. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next dungeon.